original of this, right?
Right here.
Did Mr. Hall ever sign the minutes? The last day?
From
December?
December, or, yes, he
He,
did.
he needed to come by, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
he did, yes. And they were posted, they're on the website.
So I have one other change or suggested change, and that is on item 12. Well, first of all, so in the number 3, when we go over the minutes, I would suggest that this be attached.
Okay.
If we're going to look at the minutes ahead of time, it would be helpful to have this attached so that we can look at it in its entirety. And then in number 12, in closed session, it's my understanding that the more specific we can get so that the public is aware of what's going on in closed session without compromising the confidentiality, we should be more specific. So in the case, for instance, of the last closed meeting, we would want to put something like personnel evaluation or something that indicates to the public what the purpose of
I
the
don't have it in
closed
front of me.
meeting is.
What did we have?
Right, but I'm
I thought
talking
we did
about
have some.
On the agenda.
Oh, I thought we did have
Yeah,
something
we
about
did.
it.
Right,
We did
I'm
our
not talking
last
about,
one.
Yeah, on the last one, yeah.
Right, so I would suggest we make that a practice, that we get specific about what the purpose of a closed meeting is, as specific as we can.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, somebody wanna make a motion?
So, well, in number 12, is there something more specific that we can change that to?
If I recall, do we have anything for the agenda, closed session?
No.
Today?
Then,
So, well, I think it's always supposed to be on there, advice. The advice is to put it on there, and then, I think you usually put a footnote, I've seen on other organizations that say, this is listed in the event it's needed, but no items are known, or something like that.
well, then I think we should state that.
Something
So
like
I'm just trying to
Well, I
make
think
it so
the
that the
statement
public
at the bottom
understands.
pretty well explains that.
Yeah, unless otherwise set forth in the agenda. Yeah, this is the sentence I was trying to refer to.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that you approve my minutes.
I second.
Second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? The minutes are approved. Changes to the agenda? Anybody have any suggestions for that? Okay, approval of the agenda then. Have a
Motion.
motion?
Motion. I so move, Mr. Chairman, approval of the agenda.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
opposed, no? Okay, motion to approve the agenda is passed. Any public comments by anybody? Tom, you wanna say anything? Okay, if not, we'll move to the election director's report.
In your packet, it was suggested that I let you guys, or pass out to each of you the election board, or the state board election calendar. But I'm also going to give to each of you our calendar of things that are coming up. And what I had done is, anything in red is mandatory, obviously the board needs to be there, and anything in blue, it's just, if you can make it, it would be nice if you could come. But I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we've got coming up in the next few months. I also talked with.
Pardon me, go back to March 28th, well, March 2018, Sunday. This is red text, board attendance is required.
Well, it's
What
just,
month is it?
all I did was where there's no date, It's just, I put the red text, anything in red that's where it's mandatory for the board to be there, like the board meetings and canvases and that type of thing. And the blue is just attendance, it's not a date, it's just kind of a indicator.
But what if, something I'm missing, I'm not grabbing on a Sunday, is there something going on that Sunday that the board is supposed to attend?
No,
Notice-
that's the place she's putting it.
She
It's
just
on
put it
every
in that
one.
box, there's no date there.
Because there's no date there.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
that's
Yeah,
nothing.
the date starts on that Thursday.
Yeah.
I see, okay.
Okay. So I tried to put it wherever there wasn't, each month, wherever there wasn't a date, an actual date.
All right.
Okay. Let's see, I had given you the election judges that we have so far in your packet as well. Right now, I'm still waiting to hear back from about 20 that they have not returned their paperwork. I did reach out to them today by email. And fortunately, I think all of them had email, so it was nice. I could just send a quick email to everybody, and I'm starting to hear responses, so
How many are waiting, how many?
about 20. Yeah, a little less than that right now, but around 20.
Well, the makeup date for judges training, one time you've got 2.5 hours, the next you've got 3.5 hours, is that correct?
It just depends on the type of training that it is.
Okay.
We can be open.
Well, both of them say makeup.
It is, but it could be for check-in judges, or it could be for voting judges, so I just kind of left it.
Okay.
It's at our warehouse, so it really doesn't, we can adjust the timing if we need to. We're hoping not to need them, hopefully they'll come in the days when they are scheduled to come in.
So how are you as far as the numbers of judges that you have?
We have just about 100, which is pretty good, I think. Especially since I think we're gonna be able to back it down, because of there's not really, right now, anything can happen because we still have a few more days of candidate filing. But the Board of Education seems to be kind of quiet, so right now I think we can back the number of judges down a little bit. So I think that's gonna be about right.
Are you saying about right with the 20 that you're anticipating?
Yeah, I want to hear from them, and I have heard from several, it's just I haven't got the paperwork in hand. Some of them sent it today, but some of it they said in an email. And, people getting off work, they'll see it tonight and hopefully respond tomorrow.
Do you have any idea of how many of the judges have been judges before? Is there an idea percentage-wise? Just,
The majority have been judges before, because I took it off the list that Joe gave me from the 16 election. We have had interest from new judges as well, so I'm always excited about getting new judges. I can't give you a percentage, but I would say probably 85 to 90% are returning judges, as far as I know, from what I got from Joe. So,
thank you.
Any question, so how is the balance between the parties, party balance?
it's starting to, I've gotten a little more interest from the Republican Party lately, so that's always good. But I didn't really look at it as far, but I'd say it's close to equal. We've got a few unaffiliated that are also going to be working.
All right. So the 20 is included in your estimate of 100, that's right? Okay, thank you.
You had some marked as standby. How do you anticipate, you had them assigned to a polling place? Is that for a purpose, or
My
I thought the
idea-
standby would be available to go anywhere?
My idea is, well, see, they are only in a placeholder, so that they are
Okay.
on I put them in 1-3, which isn't really a precinct, it's only the combination for
Right.
1-1.
Okay,
So that makes it easier for me to be able to pull from them when somebody, either I have to gain somebody or I need to, somebody drops
to make
out.
some changes, okay. Can you develop us a list at some point by polling place?
Mhm.
Because that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're primarily used to working from before.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought you wanted the list of
Well, I guess
judges
the
at
list
this
of,
point.
but we generally,
That's not a problem,
look at it by polling place.
not a problem. I'll have it for you next time, because the March is when they basically, their
27th
term,
is when we have to,
their term begins.
So
So I'll
we-
have it for you on the
so we
21st.
should make the,
How does that work? Is it supposed to be an equal number from both parties?
By law, there has to be, the chief judges have to be of opposite party. After that, you try to keep them as close to equal as possible, but as long as you have at least one of the opposite party in that polling place. I do not usually try to do that. I try to keep them as close to equal as I possibly can.
the law says the number of judges who belong to the majority party or the number of judges who belong to the principal minority party, they cannot exceed the lesser of each of those, which to me, doesn't that sound like they have to be equal?
But because of what happened in Baltimore City and other larger counties, they have
Yeah,
a
but-
problem getting.
Thank goodness we're not Baltimore City.
Right, but what I'm saying is, you can't always get it exactly that. You try to do it the best you can, but you can't always get it exactly that way.
Well, we discussed this, I think about 3 years ago, when Nikki was leading the thing about it, and kind of the conclusions we got from her that any precinct could be one off, but then there should be other precincts the opposite way, so that the entire thing for the county is not more than one off.
Okay.
That was,
But there again, you're going to be limited by the people who come in and put their name on the list, so.
Correct.
I mean, we can talk about making it as precise as possible as far as equal numbers, but it boils down to if you have 25 Republicans and 15 Democrats, there's gonna be a disparity that you
And that's
have
my-
to deal with.
Correct. And my goal is always to keep it as equal as I possibly can. I don't want to have it where it's heavy on one side or the other. But it's just, like you said, if I have more of one party that are interested, I've got to have bodies as well. That's important as well, having people in the polling place working.
how many do you have that are out of county?
I think we had talked, what was it, maybe 3?
Okay.
And I know that 3 or 4, and 3 of them, how many ever it was, I've only added 1 that's out of county. Now, I did have someone come in today that were interested, or not, they didn't come in, they called, that live in Dorchester, but I haven't gotten any information from them other than I'm sending them some information.
And the other hurdle is that we're such a geographically large county that asking someone to go who lives in Cordova down to Tillman Island is just gonna make them say, I don't wanna be a judge, so, that limits us more so than in a more urban area.
Couldn't you find any in Oxford? Because we don't have any from Oxford, the way I read it.
I think the people from Oxford are just getting too old.
Okay.
I know there's 2 or 3 I thought about, are in that bracket.
I mean, I really, my goal is to make sure that we have it equal. But I just want to make sure that we have an election that, we have people there to take care of the election as well.
We talked at the last meeting about the challenge for you would be to get the judges in. What kind of initiatives have you undertaken since our last meeting to identify people?
Quite honestly, I haven't had a lot of time to put to it. I reach out whenever anybody comes in. Teresa's really good. Regina's also good if she sees somebody or hears somebody that might be interested. If anyone calls, I try to give them as much information as I possibly can. Joe has actually sent me a couple, and I've reached out to them, and it's just right now I haven't had an opportunity to do a lot of outreach for that.
Probably getting almost too late to do the outreach now, I would think. How many,
Well,
we just have another
we always
month?
Well, we gotta hustle.
We always do it. I mean, and we try.
Well, I'm talking
And I will
about
tell
also
you-
balancing the, focusing on, if
One
you're
party or
short,
the other.
yeah, if you're short Republicans, talk to the Central Committee or something like that. to try
Well, I
to-
will tell you, the other day, and I will backtrack what I just said, The other day, when I went to one event, with Talbot Rising, I left information for them. And I contacted, Nick, or he and the central committee came in, and I gave them brochures and asked them to please contact people. And actually, I've had 2 or 3 people call today that got that information from somebody within that group that came in and filed. So I do it without even thinking about doing it. It's just one of those that I'm always trying to push election judges, because I think it's so important to have as many people as involved as possible.
Continue with your report.
Okay. We're going to need to close the office for the Mayo Conference, so I just need you guys to approve looking at closing at noon on the 13th, and then reopening at noon on the 16th, which gives for travel time and so forth that day.
Close on 5/13, 3/13
3/13,
at noon.
and then reopen at noon on the 16th. And there's no deadlines or anything during that time frame. That's why they did the conference during that time. So that was one of the things. Teresa's going to be working with me on the 27th in anticipation of the candidate filings. We are starting to get quite a few that are coming in, but there still seems to be quite a few that are calling in anticipation, so I want to have some coverage in the office in case people are coming in while I'm trying to file candidates.
What's the time deadline, like midnight or
9 o'clock.
9?
They don't seem like midnight, but at 9 o'clock. And like I said, there's been quite a few filings that have come through. We had talked about the poll books, and I don't know if Wendy you want to talk about that, but I'll go ahead and give my part of the report. There is legislation right now to bring same-day registration to Election Day in 2020. So right now, I think we need to keep 60, and depending on what the state mandates as far as how they want to handle same-day registration, we may need even more of those new poll books. So right now, I don't want to drop them back. I would like to keep it at level of the 60. I spoke with the state, and we have about 8 to 10 training machines, and they said it's only in dire situations that we would ever send them out into the field. So we got to make sure that they don't go out. And then, of course, we have to have a certain percentage for spares in case something happens. So that was one of the things I wanted to talk about, was that there are 2 bills, one in the Senate and one in the House, about same-day registration for Election Day. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I think we have to go on the side of expecting it to pass.
Talking about legislation, have you heard anything about the legislation that's been introduced to allow, how do I say it, foreign people to come in and be poll watchers?
There was actually, Stuart sent out something asking all the local boards if that had happened in the past election.
Right.
I know that he's going to speak on that. I think there's some type of legislation out there, but I'm not sure exactly what number it is.
I've got an email on it. I don't
Okay,
remember exactly.
okay. Because last year there were a lot of different, or 2016, there were a lot of different polling places that had people come in from different countries
Yeah,
that
okay.
had their, they had certification, so, and some of the counties said that they had them all day long.
Yeah, this was introduced to allow them to do the same as any poll watcher here is.
Correct.
Do, come in 6:30 in the morning and stay through everything.
Correct.
You're saying that there's a bill before?
There's a bill, I think it's in the Senate,
I think it is.
and I'll try to
Senate
look
bill.
up information on it. I forgot to do that.
Is the bill to deny that or to?
No, to allow it.
To allow, okay.
Okay. We are having a meeting in our warehouse tomorrow with the election technology committee, and so to get it spruced up, we went ahead and had it cleaned, just to kind of keep you what's going on there. I'm not anticipating having to have that done very often, but with the upcoming election judge training and everything else, I wanted to make sure it looked a little better than the way it was looking.
What is the election technology committee?
They're like the ones that handle the equipment, what
Oh,
Regina
okay.
does,
Okay,
yeah. They are part of Mayo. They're a committee that is brought together it's a Mayo committee that is actually, and they're going to present on, at the Mayo conference.
okay.
Okay. The disaster recovery plan meeting that I had scheduled for the 14th, that got changed to next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So if you are available, it'll be in this room. We had to have our internet upgraded. We had lost our internet several times last week to the point where we couldn't get on at all. And with this coming election fast and furiously moving, it was recommended by our regional manager to go ahead and get the cable instead of DSL because we were still on DSL. I had something happen with the MD voters portion of my computer, and I got online with the guy, and he said, "You still have DSL?" I said, "Yeah, we do." He said, "Oh." So it's gonna be a little increase. I've already spoken with Angela about it, so I've just added that additional increase into the budget so that it's taken care of. And speaking of, I met with Andy, Angela, and Jessica on March 1st, and they are...
I mean, February 1st, right? You say you.
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was not. It was last week. It wasn't February. It was last week. Sorry about that. It was February 16th that I met with them. And we're going to present at, on March 1st, that's where I got March 1st from. We have a meeting with the council. Here it is. So they suggested that I go ahead and ask for the supplemental money as well as just present the budget at the same time. So here is the dates for us. Can you do this again?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So they are expecting that next week. And I talked with them about the possibility of moving funds around that Rich had mentioned, and they said that that would work. So we can move those around at the time, and I'm going to present it to the council that that's what we want to do for this supplemental amount of money that we need to get through this election cycle, or this fiscal year, excuse me.
That was Andy and Angela and Jessica that said that, okay.
Yeah, I had brought it up, what Rich had said, and they said that, Angela said that she thinks that that would be okay, you know, as long as we've got enough, and I think we're gonna be okay with the certain parts of it. What's the other thing? I did speak with Shelley. I know that last time we had talked about the, bringing the amount of money down out of the salaries, because of not using all of the health cost or whatever it was, and she said for the 19 budget, yeah, to keep it as it is, because you never know when things might change within employees. So she did not recommend bringing that down, to just leave it at level. And I think that is everything. Oh, and I have, Joe had asked about the early voting pay, so I went ahead and contacted our sister counties. So I'll give that to you to see. Separate from that is,
So Dorchester and Queen Anne's pay the same for early voting as they do for election day.
I'm sorry, which one?
Dorchester and Queen Anne's,
Yes.
appears to me.
Mhm.
Um, Okay, but they're both paying a little bit less than we are. And Caroline does pay less at early voting.
Yes, they prorate theirs.
Well, the thing is, last early voting was, we opened at 8 o'clock, and that was the only time that we do open at 8 o'clock, and I think that's why we said the same. But this time, we opened 2 hours later, and they don't have that hour ahead of time, like
On election
do
day.
election day, and they don't have quite as long afterwards.
They should, but they shouldn't.
But then again, if you have two salary levels and you need to move people around, those people may start looking at what they get on early voting versus what they get on voting day, and that may add another dimension to trying to equal out who works where when. So it doesn't seem to me to be such a significant difference between early voting and election day. The responsibility level is the same, even though there may be some difference, but they're not being paid hourly, they're being paid for a day's work. So I just feel inclined to say that the best approach would be to leave the salaries for the judges the same, whether they're early voting or election day, and have the difference in the pay be the responsibility level, that being the chief judge and the provisional judge.
I don't quite connect, what you mean by, because most of them will wind up working early voting.
Well, I think it's just natural to look at what you get paid, and if the job that they're going to have is going to be the same. And I think that's the most important part of this, that the responsibility level for the judges is going to be the same whether they work early voting or on election day. And that is what we should focus on as well. And when you start making one day less fruitful for that person who's working because of a difference of an hour or 2 hours, it just seems unnecessary.
Really 3 hours or more.
It seems unnecessary to me. I think the most important part of this is that these people have a huge responsibility to deliver to the voter, and that they be knowledgeable and committed to being trained well, and the reward to me should be the same whether they do it for 8 hours or 10 hours.
I can see there being a difference though, if it's a matter of 2 hours.
Well, that's more than 2 hours, because at regular voting, election day, you're coming in an hour early, and you're staying a lot later.
Yeah, well, I can see there being a difference in the pay, but not everybody gets the same, they're not putting in the same amount of time.
I know a lot of people, when I talk to somebody about if they want to be a judge, I warn them that, they have to be there by 6, or because I know one or two that's kind of hard on.
I agree. I think that, I've seen that, election day, I know how much time to put in election day. And they close out that and get those results in. You don't have to do that every day during early voting. I think it's less pressure on them. There's less time, less pressure. And I think our responsibility is both to manage the resources of the county best we can. So if we can save $1 here or there, and it doesn't affect recruiting, I guess that's the big thing. And I don't think that we're dealing with a number that is so close to the edge of whether somebody will volunteer to, or offer to work or not. I would agree that, you know, a scaled difference between early voting and same day and election day would be warranted. And I'm looking at these numbers here for us, you know, we're not the top paying people, but we're in the same range.
Well, I think, other than the early voting where some of them pay a little more, but, I think $200 is reasonable for early voting for the regular judges, and, you know, 220 or for the provisionals, 240 for the chief would be reasonable. I mean, that's more than, Caroline pays, and it's pretty much in line with what Dorchester pays. Well, and even Queen Anne's is paying 200 for the other judges. They're paying quite a bit more for provisionals and chief. But,
Are we considering changing ours?
I think we should,
I thought
because,
we had established ours.
And I will say that, and I don't know how often it's been brought up, but I do know that if it has been asked, because Teresa knew that it had been changed, she has told them the pay rate, because I asked her the other day just to clarify. And she said that if they ask, she has told them that it's the same as election day. And I don't know how many that includes, it may only be one or two. But I just know that I had asked her and she said, yes, she had.
well, she's not the one that determines it.
I understand, but
I mean,
what I'm
so, I
saying
mean,
is
you
that
know.
from, based on what
Right,
had been
yeah,
done before,
yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
When you have a session that you'll go through training and all with them, that's where you make that information.
We usually don't talk about the pay per se, and usually early voting, we don't go into a lot of information because the staff is there at the beginning of each day.
I'm talking about your training session where the people come in to learn how to register people and all of that.
On our regular training for
Yeah.
election day.
Yeah, well, for early voting, they go to the same training.
Right, well, usually there's not a lot of, like I was saying, there's not a lot of emphasis put on early voting only because we're there, the staff is there. So there'll be some discussion, but it's not, and I can definitely put a slide up that says this is what the pay is for early voting judges. That's not a problem for me. I just, whatever you all decide.
And you're at, go back to what you said earlier, you think you're at 200 judges now?
About 100.
I mean, 100. The 20 was a little, that's.
Right, so about, and I feel like most of them will let me know. It's just a matter of, you know, people get busy and they forget that was a date to return it. And that's why I reached out to them. And like I said, I had 3 or 4 today that immediately said, oh, I forgot, or I lost it, and I sent it to them and they sent it right back to me. So it's just a matter of just reaching out to them.
And I don't know, I'd like to have a scaled amount. Joe had suggested 200 for
200,
And
and I suggested 220 for
and
provisionals.
for provisions,
240
but
for
that
the
compares with what we've got for the election day, which is,
If I can, would you be okay with the fact of me bringing the prorated amount to you for the next meeting? Or I can even send it by email and you can look at it then?
well, put the ones down that Joe suggested now, just now, or?
That's up to you. I was just gonna prorate for what they are getting paid and then back it off.
That's pretty much based on prorated.
Prorating in terms
Actually,
of
it comes
hours.
to
or anything?
190 something, so,
Okay.
What's the
Round
basis of the
to.
prorating?
huh?
I'm asking her what the basis of the prorating is.
Well, if you
thinking
prorate it, it comes out to uneven dollars.
And
Because
you
it come
just-
out to like 191, so I said, yeah, make it 2, you know.
Oh, Okay, all right.
It's fine, whichever
Yeah.
you wanna do,
Well, prorated off of the 250? I'm just trying to
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, and
Oh,
it
okay,
come a
so
little less
be
than
like
two, but I thought
80%
rounded
of
to
each?
two. What's that?
It's like 80% of the election day
I
one?
forgot the percent.
I got a calculator.
What is our basis for really, making changes and seeing it work in the past?
Well, the last time they started at 8 o'clock. And previously, we'd been different when they started at 10 o'clock. And they didn't work as many days either. Previously it wasn't 8 days and prior to 16.
Yeah, it's 80%.
I think, when you want somebody to get out to be there at 6 o'clock, they should be, compensated for the difference.
Okay, so we consider maybe upping it then.
No, I think we're considering making the early voting proportional to what the election day is.
Well, I like the idea of upping it. Rewarding them for getting there so early.
Well, I think we're as high as any of the other surrounding counties.
Yeah, you tend to balance the responsibility of dealing with the people's money at the county level.
Right, I think,
I
we're
would,
responsible to the general public too.
I would support something that was like 80% of the election day number for the three positions we talked about.
Well, that would be 200,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that's why I did the math on it.
yeah.
So, I mean, I accept Jerry's offer to come back to us next month with it. Is that too late for you to have the information? Okay.
No, I'll be more than happy to do it that way.
Will this affect what we're going to the county council with, and then when is that, March 1st?
Well, yeah, because all of the information that I gave them is based on what had been talked about as far as giving them full pay on early voting.
So didn't we already approve that? Haven't we already approved this budget?
As far as I know,
At the last meeting, I think we approved it pending the discussion on the poll books and something else. I
and
think we already approved this.
healthcare or retirement, healthcare, that's what it was.
This is not gonna impact it upwardly.
I'm sorry?
This, what we're talking about is not gonna impact the numbers upwardly.
No, because
No.
it's based
No.
on
Right.
them getting paid the same
Yeah,
amount for
right.
early voting as well as election day. With the exception of training, because they don't get paid for the training. For early voting, because it's not,
Yeah,
To the
they
same
don't get
extent
paid for
as
additional training.
exactly. It's only the one time they get paid for training.
Right,
Yes.
but everybody gets trained.
Mhm.
Everybody gets trained, so it doesn't matter whether they work early voting or election day, yeah.
You want to let it ride to the next meeting then?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so you still want me to look through it, or?
Yeah, I
mean-
think so.
Okay, okay.
You got anything else on your report?
I think so, sir. I think that was it. Oh, I'm just gonna give this out to you to let you look at budget numbers. Allison at Caroline,
And get-
she does this every week. She just gives a number on what each county around us is requesting, and I thought I'd pass it on to you.
Maybe we should pass this on to the council too.
I am. That's the plan.
Caroline's request is down from last year.
I really don't understand understand what I'm looking at.
This is what each county is requesting, with the exception of Kent and Somerset, they didn't get back to her. This is what they requested last year, and this is what they are requesting this year.
The board, when you say they.
Yes, this is what the.
For operation of
that's
the board
what
for a year.
the election boards are.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
And Talbot, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say it says right up there, but I couldn't put it all together. Right.
Well, I didn't understand what an active voter is.
An active voter is anyone who is either active or inactive in our system right at this time. They can go into the polling place and
They're registered voters, so
they don't have any other thing that may
They're not-
be.
percentage of the total population that just actually, that's voted last
No,
time or
it's-
something like that.
This is how many active voters they have in each one of the counties.
And Talbot has
Or registered.
roughly, approximately 8,000 more active voters than Caroline, and Caroline's budget request is more than Talbot's. Which is,
Yeah, actually, we're like at 20, I have the numbers on this.
And they're
28,
paying more than we are for us judges. That's the deal.
Yeah, I went to the, yeah, so that, yeah.
Anything else you have to report?
No, I think I'm done.
I think
I'm
you're done.
gonna stop talking.
Mr. Cronin, you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay, we'll go to old business. Mark, I guess we have more to hear from you, or?
You need some room to kind of spread out?
Probably will, because I'd like to lay out some of these maps, so
Yeah, I can fold up and
we
turn a little bit.
can take a look. So, just a quick review. So I work for Talbot County Department of Public Works. I work with Geographic Information Systems, so I do the mapping and the database work using computers. So I do a lot of computer mapping. So what Jerry and I have been talking about is the dated GIS data that represents the districts and precincts. And so, just as an example, and so the idea is, you know, these boundary lines are in the 15, 20-year-old range, and we just want to modernize them. We're not going to change them, we're just going to modernize them. So they are accurately represented where the boundaries are supposed to hit the roads and things like that.
how do you do that without changing?
Well, I'll show you. Okay, so here, this is the same part of a map. This is the old precinct boundary. This is the modern precinct boundary. Okay, so these are roads that were drawn by US Census way back probably in 1990 or so. And if you look at the roads, they don't even line up with the roads on the aerial photography. So the aerial photography is sort of what I use to show accuracy in a map. And so when you overlay this road data and the boundary data, it doesn't line up with the roads. So so the road is here. See this road, this Elliott Road here doesn't line up. Pintail here, you know, it's just way off. It's mapped at a different scale. Let's say this is mapped at probably 1 inch equals 2,000 feet. And so what I'd like to do is modernize the boundaries so they're mapped at a higher scale, a larger scale. At 1 inch equals 200 feet. So 1 inch equals 2,000 feet, 1 inch equals 200 feet. And so what I'd like to do is make these boundaries match the roads and match you know, the neighborhoods and you know, actually are located where they're supposed to be located.
Have you got the maps with the descriptions on it? That large map, the descriptions?
Map with the description.
Yeah, the one I brought you that had descriptions from back several years. Because we have to have descriptions.
Right. You're talking about district?
Right,
description?
was that one that had the, yeah, the precincts and districts?
Okay, there is, I wanna make sure I've got, because I've got everything that's here. I'm not sure if I'm following.
Well, I brought you a big one, remember,
Yes,
that had,
you got-
had
you
descriptions
gave
for
me-
each, I think it was for each precinct.
Okay, what I have, this is what we've got, this is what I'm talking to, this is the descriptions that I think you found, wasn't it? Or
But
was
that's
it
only that one
Tony?
change, right, between,
No, this is all of the descriptions, no, this was found by the.
What are you
clerk of
talking
Court.
about?
oh, that's
I don't
for,
know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm not sure, I wanna make sure I'm.
So a
following.
description is written words.
right, yeah, and it describes where it, what river, what road, or what,
Are
Yeah.
you talking about the legal description of
Yes.
the districts and
right, and the
precincts
precincts, right.
that were used to determine the previous boundaries? Is that what that is? Is that what you're saying?
Is that
is
what
the-
you're
Yeah, that-
asking?
That was what was on that map, was
Right.
how the descriptions that were recorded.
Uh-huh. Is,
And
Okay.
is this more than that one change between
Mhm.
District 1 and 3, or is this the whole thing?
I'm sorry, this is this the one you're talking about?
No, no, it was a
No.
big map.
I'm not
Well,
sure.
My question is, I understand what you're saying, but I don't understand what the basis is that is used to determine that there's an error or a correction that needs to be done. That's my biggest question. I have other questions, because I don't understand if this is an administrative correction, or is it bigger than that? And I need to know what the original basis was, and I need to know how many people are impacted by the change, and I need to know how many people are impacted by precinct and by district. I need to understand that. I mean, I'm assuming we all do, but I'm just saying,
Right.
when I started thinking about this, that was my question. Well, what's the basis? What prompted this? How did you come upon discovering that there were changes that needed to be made? And my question as a responsible member of the Board of Elections is, are we making corrections, or are we changing the legal maps that determine who votes where?
So we're talking about at least two or three completely different issues, and we've got them sort of mixed up.
Well,
And so, okay, so what I'm doing is trying to show that we have map boundaries that are represented by old, very small scale maps. I'm trying to modernize it to modern GIS practice in a larger scale. So these roads that we used to use are represented by our new roads that are mapped in a more accurate way, and then I'm just adjusting the boundaries where they're supposed to be. So it's just a modernization. I'm not changing anything. I'm not putting anybody in any different areas, or the lines aren't moving outside of where they're supposed to be. It's just a more accurate way of mapping.
but you're talking about districts and precincts, which
Mhm.
are voters. They're addresses that put people in different
Mm-hmm.
voting districts. And
Right.
if you correct the map, and that correction means that the line is moved, then people are going to have to adjust to some other different
So,
practice.
okay, so this is what we have now. Okay, so right now, if you look at this map, the boundary line, and maybe I should use a different one here. I have several examples. Here's a good one. Okay. So this is the boundary between District 2 Precinct 3 and District 2 Precinct 1. Okay, so this is 1, this is 3. Okay, this is the older version of the map. Okay, right here is where they mapped. They mapped the boundary between the left side and the right side of Blueberry Acres Road. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we represent this correctly. But here, if you look at the aerial photography, the Blueberry's Acres Road is actually over here. So we've mapped it correct. So here, Blueberry's Acres Road is actually down here. So we're continuing to represent the boundary on Blueberry Acres Road, except we've moved the road to the correct spot on the aerial photography. It's really all
You're saying
all we're
that,
doing.
that Blueberry Acres Road is not in the right place?
This one, because it's mapped at 1 inch equals 2,000, so you're looking at a very small map and someone's drawing a line and it's mapped that way. We're blowing up very high resolution. We're looking at a new way of mapping with high resolution photography, and we're mapping in a much better scale. So we can actually see the houses here. You know, this was mapped by different people with different technology. We have much better technology and we can see a lot more, and so we're just trying to update it so it's accurate. So if we take this boundary and overlay it with this road, we would force people to be in the wrong district. And I want people to be in the right district, so I'm updating the map.
Okay, but your mapping objective, it sounds very reasonable, and I understand that there are better ways to map. I understand that. But if that correction that you're making on the map generates a voter notification card,
But it won't.
so,
It's not.
okay, so what is it that you were talking about when you told us that there were
Okay.
a number of?
So that's a whole different
Yeah.
thing.
Okay, so I
And
need
then-
to,
Okay.
Do you want to get through this
Yeah.
first and then talk to that?
Mhm.
Because it would be probably confusing if we go ahead and start talking about the other
You're
thing.
right.
Okay, so are there any questions as to kind of what I'm trying to do?
I'm totally confused.
You're totally confused, okay.
But don't stop that, man. I'll catch it.
Can I add a question? This house
Absolutely.
right here, on the new one. Here, like if you look right here, this is a house that's outside, it's in the blue, but in here it's in the green. So does that mean that they would be in a different precinct?
Okay, so,
And maybe the same thing with these guys here, these guys are in blue, but here, these guys are in green. Does that mean that they would be changed? I think that's getting to
Sounds like
your
it.
question.
so,
it-
yeah, and it's gonna get confusing. I understand that it's gonna get confusing, so
As
I
you move the
guess.
colors and you move the
So,
lines, change the precinct.
we want to best represent, okay, so this boundary that was drawn in, let's say, 1990 or so. So whoever's intention that drew this was to create the boundary on Blueberry Acres and then come to the river. I'm trying to do the exact same thing here. I'm trying to use Blueberry Acres and come to the river. So I'm really doing my best to represent what the intent was when they drew the lines in 1990.
But suppose you
To
don't,
match with-
you're saying you're doing your best, and of course, we all accept that, but suppose you don't, do what is accurate as you want to do it, and again, that moves certain voters in another voting, geographical area.
It shouldn't do that.
So were there any, when you made these corrections, and you had guidance, because you already had these things
Exactly, yeah.
indicated, so that was your guidance. What were the situations where you didn't have guidance and you had to use your own logic?
I don't think any,
None.
no, because there's always somewhere where there is a line that is shown by a road or a river or a community or something like that, where I can look at what they did in 1990 and represent that now with the modernization of the data.
So, just from a mapping standpoint, forget about districts and precincts, just from a mapping standpoint, all of Talbot County, you can go to the old maps
Mhm.
and rely on all the geographic indicators, and
Mhm.
you won't have to make any judgment call?
No, not really. These are the most difficult ones. Okay, so this is Blueberry Acres, right here.
You mean just the?
These are the ones that are best represented as to the changes that, or the updates that I made. So this one was Blueberry Acres, and so let's look at this one. So this is on Tillman, let's see, it's north of Tillman Island. This is Donnell Jones Road. This is Tillman Island Road. Okay, so in 1990, they mapped it using Donnell Jones Road and then going up this property here. I think this is probably intended to be a driveway. It's represented as a road. And here I did the same thing. I went up Donnell Jones Road and I went, up the driveway to the water. So the difference between this one and this one is actually pretty significant, because if you took this line and put it here, Donnell Jones Road is here and the line is here. So that's how far it got updated. But I'm trying to represent the line that Donnell Jones, is splitting precinct and precinct.
So when you did that, since this isn't named, did you have to assume that this road, Donnell Jones, was a continuation of this, or is there something else that told you this is Donnell Jones?
So I had to interpret. So I know that in 1990 they used this as Donnell Jones. Now I know that this is mapped as Donnell Jones. It's the same road, and then it goes straight out. So I went straight out the best I could, using a driveway, because I think my interpretation is that this was a driveway. So I used the driveway and went out to the water straight. So I'm just doing my best to make that interpretation. Don't.
Okay, so that's one. You said there were 3 issues.
3. Oh, okay. So you're okay with this?
I don't wanna, well, I'm understanding your mapping,
Okay.
objective.
All right. So overall, if you look at the maps, it'd be very difficult to see any changes.
Right, well,
Yeah.
the
Of course,
big
at this
areas,
scale, this is
right.
right. So this is Easton. So this is mapped around a community. So
Well, when you set out changes, were they reflecting this, or are they reflecting something else?
They weren't reflecting what he's talking about here. This was just kind of cleaning up what my changes were when we went road by road, and he had through GIS, had the district precincts in there, and we had to go road by road to see which roads were in each district precinct, each district especially. But we wanted to verify that the correct roads were in there.
So
And you got like 1,800 changes?
It was something like that, and I have talked to state board, and I have gotten no response of being able to bring that down, to verify which way it, who had school board changes and who had, district changes. or
So
precinct changes.
1,800, just, because 1,800 is the number of changes that came about as a result of the, looking at the new maps.
Of updating our street files to match the district precincts that existed.
And that does not include change of name or change of address or anything like that?
Some of
That's
them, we did move, or change the name of the street, because the street name was wrong. So they were included as well, like.
They would have been changes of street name as a result of this effort.
Yes.
How would a street name be wrong?
Oh golly, there were several that we had just,
There's one in St. Michael's where the
Yeah.
street sign on one end of the street said Gloria, and the other street sign on the other end of the street was
glory.
Glory. And then we had to work it out with the town of St. Michael's, determine which
Which is
is accurate, and we had to make sure that the addresses on the registered voters were accurate so they would go to the right house.
Yes.
Those were the kinds of things.
Were there very many like that?
Yeah,
There were some, there was a couple in, was it, not Trap, there were some in, I'm trying to remember now, it just was different, it was like sporadic. There was quite a few around Tillman and St. Michael's, or more St. Michael's area, as I recall.
Would you say there were hundreds or less than 100 of that 1,800?
I would say that's a good possibility, because there was one that it was, there was no, like, it was a prefix or a suffix, whether it should be in the front or back.
Right,
And according to what we found out, it should have been in one way and we had to change it to the other.
right.
And some of those were in larger areas.
So were you saying that you think there were 100 or more than 100?
10%.
Yeah, maybe 100. I don't remember exactly.
Those-
It was just a matter of just
5%.
updating it at the time, and, you know, we didn't really think about pulling it in. And honestly, I thought MD Voter, or the folks at the state board, would have been able to pull it, you know, to make a report, but it didn't, it has not come up with that. And I've reached out to them several times, and they've not been able to do anything at that point, at this point.
So, I'm gonna go back to my original question, and it's not gonna be related to your mapping.
okay.
So, what prompted you to, how did you start this process? What prompted this?
I was looking on a map, and Joe, I don't remember if you were there or not, but I was looking on the map at the education districts. And I noticed there was a street that clearly was on, it was divided by, on one side was district, or education district 1, the other side was education district 2. It's an example, I'm not saying that was exactly what it was. And I was like, I looked it up in MD Voters and saw that it was considered all in the same education district, where clearly it should have been in 2 different
I
education
mean, the
districts.
map showed that it was in 2?
Yes, yes.
But MD voters,
Or the data record with the address ranges described it as both sides of the street being.
Yes, it was an all instead of an even odd.
but the map showed it as even odd.
And so did his GIS.
Right.
So when you saw that, what happened? What happened?
Well, we started out looking at just the education districts. And then while doing that, getting that taken care of, that's when we noticed that there were some within district precincts that were not in the correct. Again, I found another road, and I can't remember what road it was. Part of it was on, it should have been an even odd, and it was an all.
So when you were doing that, were you going back to the MD voter database each time that you saw a discrepancy, or is it?
Yes.
Or saw a question?
Right, I sat down, I pulled every street file for each district precinct and each education district, and we did it separately, each one. And that's when I asked Mark to help me as far as what his GIS information had. So that's when we went through street by street and made sure that everything matched up. So if he had something as an even odd, he would go back and actually look at the area, and he would pull in whether it should be, and he had it color coded so it was easy to see whether it was even odd. And in my records, it was showing as being even odd.
Your Maryland
Yes.
database?
Through our street files that had been recorded, it was showing it as being all. And at that point, we just had to, we couldn't not do the whole county to make sure that everything was correct.
So when you did your part of this, or you were using Maryland voter database as your guide,
Correct.
and you determined the corrections that needed to be made based on the Maryland database of voters.
With our street files, yes.
And then you went and said, okay, here's where I'm seeing
We did it in tandem.
discrepancies.
We did it in tandem. I didn't pull them out otherwise. At that point, knowing that there were several streets that were involved, and by several, I mean a lot, or what seemed like a lot, but we were able to, then he brought his computer over and we went through and just mapped everything, or he mapped everything to verify that each were on the correct places.
Okay, so then my next question is the Maryland database the legal definition of who gets to vote where? Is that the basis for determining where people vote?
That's what brings out the voter notification cards, yes. That's what generates the voter notification cards, our street
So,
files.
I think that needs to be answered by our attorney as well, so that we understand that what is happening here is not anything different from what the legal definition is of who the voter is and where that voter votes. That this does not change any of that.
That, what he's talking about now, no, well,
Yeah, because people are gonna ask, and unless, I wanna be able to say that we haven't arbitrarily made changes, that we're just correcting what the record shows should have been. Because it's been, we had a census in 2000, so there have been 4 elections based on what you're calling old maps. And
Did we have one in
The voters-
2010?
the voter's gonna be wondering, well, why were these why did they get this voter notification card now?
well, and I will tell you that we have had several that have called about the fact that they voted in the same place for 40 years.
Sure.
And a couple of them have come in, and Mark has brought his computer over, and he has shown them exactly where their house is as compared to where the boundary lines are for the district. And they have, now we still are researching one area that that we want to make sure that we've got the most recent definition for the district. But we have gotten, they've been very good about understanding that, and I've told them, and anytime they can come in so that we can show them, and Mark's been gracious enough to bring that computer with the information on it so that they can see it.
Yeah, well, you've got a number of 1,700 people out of 28,000 is a pretty big number.
I understand,
Significant. yeah.
That's it.
I understand.
Right. So, I mean,
Do you know the breakout of that?
pardon?
Democrats or from a political party standpoint?
No.
Probably
You don't know
60.
any kind of breakout, do you? From
I
the
don't
state?
think, yeah, I mean,
Oh.
from our standpoint, it's just voters.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't be looking at it that way, probably. I doubt that.
Trying to clean up
Either. I-
their information so that they would be in the correct district precincts. That was the intention of what sparked all this, and then the correct
Right.
education district.
Okay, so I just, I understand but I would like the attorney to confirm with the state or with whomever you have to confirm with that what we're doing is not
Changing, but
changing.
correct.
Yes, because it is such a big number. And because it's been going on since at least 2010, because that's, I'm sure, when these precincts were reestablished.
Well, I don't think all those changes were from that. A lot of them were from one, this precinct went down the middle of the street,
Correct.
and anybody on either side might have been put in the wrong, on one side was put in the right precinct, but the other side was put in the wrong one.
Exactly.
And then I know out of Matthews, 4 years ago, I think we found out Matthewstown Road, School Board District 2, I think it was, ended somewhere near Walter's house, out Matthewstown Road about 3/4 of a mile from Route 50. And there was people that were a mile on the other side of Black Dog Alley were there, and there was 5 of them that were voting at Eastern Firehouse, and they should have been voting at the community center. And they were sort of pointed out, their 5 votes were the only ones at Eastern Firehouse on School Board District 4, and they should have been on School Board District 4, and they were on District 2.
Right, right. And that was several of the people that Mark had it as an even odd, like you had
Right.
said, and in our records it showed that they were all. So it had to be split to have the people in the correct district.
Mhm, sure.
It wasn't always districts. A lot of them were precincts or education precincts, or education districts. So the actual district changes were, as I recall, minimal.
Okay, so it would be helpful for us to know what you're specifically talking about. You have around 1,700 people who have been impacted. This is the number that were impacted by district change, by correction, so that their district is going to change, and this is it would be helpful to have
I
that information.
understand, and-
Because otherwise, if people come and say, oh, well, what happened? We're not gonna be able to speak in specifics.
And
And that's
I
not
understand
good.
exactly what you're saying, and I have reached out to them several times and asked them if they've been able to pull that information, because I've given them the time frame. And so far, I still am not getting anything back from them, and they would be the ones that would have to pull that information.
Them is who?
Her name is Janet Smith, she's at the
Oh,
state
at
board.
State Board,
Mhm.
okay.
And I will reach out to her again, and see if maybe something, if she's gotten anywhere. I just talked to her, she was on vacation, I think, last week, but,
So how would she have how does she have a record of the changes?
well, I think what she would have had to have done, and I just am assuming this, is that she would have had to have gone into, to look at the time frame of where we had the voter notification cards. Well, I don't know that, but I'm thinking that would be.
So there's no record of the voter notification cards and who got them and why
Oh,
they
sure,
were
in
sent?
their records.
In their
In
records.
the individual's records, yes. It's always on their activity log.
So they have a database with that information.
Yeah, everything whenever any change is made to an individual,
Right.
it's on.
So
there.
we should be able to get that. That's pretty important to us.
Okay, I will keep reaching out to
Yeah.
them and see if we can get the percentage or the
The
percentage of
numbers.
it. Mhm.
I think we need to have that information.
Have you discovered any more about the difference between District 1 and District 3? That area that was, I think that's more
We're
of
seeing,
an
and this
issue.
is where I'm reaching out to Phil to see, I'm gonna clue him in so he can kind of get an idea. This one I think came from you? I don't remember, it came from either you or Tony.
Could be Tony.
This is the last information that we have, is that it did dip down, and for some reason, it was going straight across. From whatever we're finding out, we're still in the process of trying to find out this information. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go up to, I've gotta go up and fill Donna Duncan in on all this that has transpired, so that she has an idea. But we're still working on that, and we were given some information as far as legal descriptions, but it's very hard to read.
And what is that?
These are the legal descriptions for the districts.
And it was what year it was changed?
1892. 1892.
But that's not valid.
Yeah, but we've been following the
Because
wrong,
we've had changes.
we've been following the wrong thing ever since 1892.
Not for the districts. Districts haven't
Yeah.
changed. precincts have changed.
Yeah, districts
The
don't
districts have
usually
not
change.
changed.
It takes,
The county
A lot.
commissioners changed it
correct.
in 1892.
It's the
This
state,
was
wasn't it?
done
Is
by
that
the
state?
governor. This was done by the governor. This
Oh,
is the
really?
Yeah, the
last
state.
information we've got, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Pre-
let me,
I'm sorry.
How many people is it in that area that we've had wrong?
Oh, I'd have to go back
I
and
mean,
look.
roughly,
Oh,
let me,
couple hundred or so? or-
No. Where's the, you have the map?
yeah, because there's not that many
There's not,
houses.
it's not that many.
There's not that many.
Because to me, that's a bigger issue than this other stuff right now.
just.
I doesn't have any addresses listed.
may I ask a question? What do we use these maps for?
These,
Yeah,
These are
like the physical representation we have right in front of us here, what are they used for?
they're on our website. They're,
Okay, that's what I thought. Now,
um,
beyond that, nobody comes in here and says, my house is here. Where do I go to vote? They give you their actual address, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
correct.
So this is really more of a public information piece, and it's not a official document. The map itself is not an official document that's referred to when somebody wants to register to vote.
I guess also people will use it if they are in education board districts, if they
Yeah.
would like to have it for something.
They would like to know where it is, but you will give them, or the state or
Street
somebody
office.
will give them the information about where they are, precinct, district, election board, so forth.
Correct.
So it's not the map that tells them that. They can look at the map on the website or on your wall or wherever and come in and say, I'm here, and give me the paperwork for the pink, and you'll say, oh, give me your address. You won't use the map to find them. So I'm trying to get to the point where this is a very important matter, and the information that you're gonna look up for Susan is important stuff,
Correct.
but it's not the result of mismapping. It was it's the documentation that's in the MD voter or something like that, that's the problem here. Okay,
Yes,
I wanted to make
that
that
was where the
That's
problem
right.
was.
clear,
Yes.
that we're talking about a very nice piece of work and a very useful piece of work,
Right.
but it itself hasn't done any damage. Whatever's been put into MD voter is where it's a human interface or whatever is the issue.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay,
it is
thank
a-
you.
It is a quality control, what we did is basically quality
So
control,
I'm-
and it's a maintenance thing that
Yeah.
probably should have happened along the line, and it just,
Yeah, okay.
happened now.
All right, I think that makes everybody feel a lot more comfortable, that we're not using this data, this piece, these documents to, and I could see the point where, the road is here and the line was over here, and there's some people in the middle there that may have been thought to be in the wrong area, and they're the ones that would come in and say, this is where I am, and then you would register them and say, no, it's really, sorry, the drawing's wrong.
Right.
So you say that nobody will ever use these to determine their district?
They will not, it would not be an official, the state will not take any action to assign them to a polling place based on these maps.
So we
The
need
map
to
does
have a
determine
confirmation that
where
the
district
MD
is.
Yes, it
voter
does.
The map,
is
the official record.
legal guidance for sending out, for determining where these people vote. We need to have that assurance.
So can I try and put this in perspective just a little bit? So back at, let's see, I don't think we have
Probably not.
the piece of paper from the county code that,
Yeah, it's in there.
is it in there?
It's just buried in there, but it is in there.
Okay,
Because
so,
I've got everything all together, because I don't want to lose anything.
so the county code describes the process and the changes that have happened. Okay. So this is, all right, so This is chapter 53 in the county code. And this is 53-1, division into 5 districts, meets and bounds description. And this small paragraph here describes the process from, in chronological order, from the beginning. The county is divided into 5 districts, provided by chapter 115 of the Acts of the General Assembly from 1798. And then it goes to, chapter 48 in 1799, chapter 50 in 1799, chapter 258 in 1852, chapter 572 in 1892. 1892 is the last time that the districts were updated.
And that's the change.
And then-
Trapping.
And so as a description of the 1892 boundary, this
Yeah, that's,
description was recorded. And this is from 1892 in script.
So that determines what district you're in.
That,
right.
this is a description in meets and bounds
Right.
of the map. And meets and bounds is like a property line description.
So your map
Every
becomes,
district?
So this describes how to draw the map.
so your map effectively becomes a survey
The-
representing that meets and bounds description.
Yes,
But is every
That's
district
correct.
in there, or just that change?
the districts are in here.
All
All of the districts are in here.
So in
From
that case, it
1892,
is a formal
this-
document.
This is it.
This is
This
the formal document.
This is the formal document.
So is that is a graphical representation of the meets and bounds.
Yeah, this
There's a
is,
descriptive, there's a,
But it's not controlling.
this is it.
that's the controlling piece.
Right.
That's the
This is
point.
controlling.
If
This
there's a
represents
disagreement
this.
between these 2 documents, that applies.
Exactly.
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding too.
So
But
the,
that's why I want
Well, that's when this was
Well,
changed,
kind of look at that.
Right, the map will never control.
that's my point.
92, right?
As a voter
And we've
in the
been following.
county, I'm concerned that because of this, I think we were talking about this back in October, and we were having to hope, we had hoped, I think that all this would be done by December, I think is what we had said in the meeting, and that this would all be done because this is an election year, that we're doing this, and now here we are almost on the doorsteps of March, and we're still messing around with this, and we don't know the full impact to the voters. And we are in a small county where, even with the numbers that we have, we only get a minority of the percentage coming out to vote. So if you're talking about 1,800 voters, and let's just say maybe that's 900, elections are determined by less than 900 votes in our county. So this is highly significant.
It is,
And
I
so
agree with you.
What I can foresee happening is somebody, like you said earlier, who has voted for us in one place for 40 years, now they came and talked to us, I've been voting here for 40 years. Now you tell them they gotta go someplace else. What about that person that didn't come talk to you? They go to that place where they went for 40 years and they say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have your card, and they happen to be on their lunch break or something from work, and they gotta go back to work, and now they didn't vote. So, and.
Well, they can vote a provisional ballot
Well,
there.
but even
But
But
that,
that
that's-
makes it,
but
that
that's
makes
still-
it,
That's still
problematic.
cumbersome,
A lot
yeah.
of people go, what do you mean provisional?
But if I understand the problem right, the 1700, whatever, that was human error. That was human error. It wasn't somebody coming in and looking at a map and saying something. There was a human error in terms of what was entered into the state database.
Yeah.
And.
And it should be fixed.
Yeah, that's the part that has to be
Which we
fixed.
went through.
As well, but that's first to
I
be
think that's a
fixed.
great point, yeah. But what we have to do then is make sure that we have 100% notification and response from these people that we're sending out cards to. And if we don't, then we should have an alternative method for them to, as like a grace period year, where if I come up, and this is not my district, but it was my district, you should still have my ability to vote there somehow, at least until the next election. Give me a chance to phase in this new process.
but we're not, there are laws that are in place that are not gonna allow us to have the flexibility that you're talking about. I mean, we would like to take every single person who got one of those notifications and say, come with me, I'll show you where you have to go, and I'll even drive you there. But that's not gonna happen. We're gonna have people who are confused and angry.
Well, then I would suggest that you send that list to the Republican Central Committee, and you send it to the Republican, or the Democratic Central Committee, and you say, these people have been notified, you know, please make sure that they are, you know, we want to do everything that you can, is my point. Because you're doing this at the cusp of a very important time, and it probably should have been done in the spring of 2017, or maybe 1990, pushed off till 2019. But I know the problem exists. I applaud you for trying to solve it. I'm just trying to make sure that whatever happens, you get 100% of the people notified. Because otherwise, someone's going to come up and say, this is a form of voter suppression. If it's the Republicans that are the majority of those that don't get to vote, they're going to say the Democrats would have voter suppression. If it's the opposite party, it's going to work the other way. And so the best thing you can do is just make sure that you have as close to 100% and do everything you can.
Yeah, and we work together to accomplish that.
Thank you. I'm sorry for this.
Yeah, no, so,
Well taken.
Well, I think the ones in this, between 3 and 1, that's the biggest issue. And the one guy that said he voted for 40-some years, can he qualify under the disabilities or age?
I don't believe so. I'd have to look into that.
I mean, because it's not just disabilities, it's age. And I'm wondering if he could qualify under that to be assigned,
have to reach out to the
vote it where he'd voted previously.
so are there certain steps that we can take that are efforts to make the public that has been impacted know that there's a change? In addition to the voter notification card, are there things that we can do?
Well, the one thing, on the voter notification card, it does say that the polling place had changed. That's the one thing it does say, so that's one. When I send out the specimen ballots, I intend to put where it gives detailed information on the one side, in red, please check your polling place for the correct polling place, and that's on the specimen ballot.
But that'll go to everybody.
That'll go to
Whether they
everybody,
were
and that's
changed or
fine.
not.
I mean, if they're looking at it, that's fine, you know, even if they haven't changed, that's gonna grab the people that it did change.
So I guess my question is there something that we can do for those voters who have been impacted that we're not doing for everyone? Is there an additional notification? Can we send out another voter notification card as a second notice? Can we require a response? I mean, I know the answer is no to that, but are there things that we can do just for that population that's been impacted?
Can we identify them?
Well, what I can do is, and I will work on it tomorrow, is try to find, I don't think they've been eliminated, because see, after a certain time, because we have so many voter notification cards that go out,
Mhm.
but I will look through and see what I can find as far, and they're not eliminated, but they're archived. So I would have to go to the state board for that time frame, and I may not have to. It may be something I can still see on my screen.
Mhm.
If it is, then I'm going to just generate all of that information as far as a copy, and then I'll try to take it from there. If I have to, I'll go one by one into the voter record to see what the impact was.
And can you act on it? Can you notify them again, or?
Well, I could always send out another voter notification card. That's just a matter of printing it and sending it
Yeah,
out.
but that's duplication. Should we just send them a letter and tell them
Well-
that we made a change?
Well,
I don't think
I think
they
they-
send a duplicate card.
sending a notice that they're changed with a letter that says this will tell you that you've changed is kind of redundant, I would think. I think that the best solution, it's my idea, so it's got to be the best solution, right? A solution might be that, we prepare the people working at the polls that day for the high probability that they'll be inundated with the issues, and have a special training on that particular thing for this year's election.
I can do that.
I think that's the easiest, because mailing another thing is the same as mailing the first. It's going to be put in a desk drawer and may or may not have clicked in my mind what it really said. Another letter or another copy of the same thing may not be recognized as a significant issue. Also,
What
remember,
if you stamp it final notice?
yeah, finally, noted.
Big red letters, right?
You may have won $1 million.
I would think we should do both,
Yeah.
because what we don't want is those people coming to the polls and having to do a provisional. We don't want that.
They don't like
Well,
that.
they
We
don't,
don't want that.
they don't get a provisional ballot, do they?
If they're in the wrong polling place, yes, that would be how.
Well, they could go to
they-
the other.
Well,
Correct.
oh,
They would
okay,
be encouraged to go to their correct polling place,
Right,
but if they
okay.
refuse to, they can have they are.
but when you have people from Prince George's County coming over here to vote, and they can vote, they're allowed to vote in the, is that a provisional ballot as
That's
well?
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a provisional ballot.
Yeah, but we're talking about a substantial
understand.
number.
I
We're
understand.
not talking about incidental here and there.
Yeah, I understand, and that means that there'll be a lot more pieces of paper to look at than the canvas for
Well,
us.
it'd be good.
If they do that, I mean, there are
I-
gonna be people who say, forget this and walk out the door. You're right, you're absolutely right. They're
And-
gonna say, I'm not, forget it.
And also, there is 8 days of early voting, which will help with some of that, because a lot of people will use those 8 days of early voting. Not all of them, but some will.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Does it change their place of polling during the early voting as well?
Everybody votes
That's
at
a
the
real
firehouse.
Firehouse,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep.
Right,
So that gives some
Some help.
help,
Mhm.
that there is
So-
8 days.
okay.
Because as a matter of fact, the lady who came in, Mark showed her exactly where it was, and I told her, I said, you do have early voting that you can use. She said, that's exactly what I'll use. And she was fine. So I'm not saying that it's gonna be the perfect solution.
Of course not.
But it does give some, help to,
Right.
for that.
So I would suggest that we have some kind of a news article written as difficult as it might be, because it'll probably be opening up a can of worms for
Right.
the community, but I think we need to get the word out that there are a substantial number of people in this community that are gonna have a change in voting place, and that the resolution for them is not that they can't vote, but that they can go early voting and not have any change, or they can go to the new voting place, or they can go and fill out a provisional and make it very clear what their options are, and have that put out, and we'll take the heat, but at least generate some conversation in the community that this is gonna happen.
Am I correct in understanding that most of these changes involve relatively, maybe not large, but a single block area? So you may have a block in Trapp and a block in St. Michael's, and everybody on that block is being affected, and it's not the entirety of St. Michael's?
Well, you had that block here, this block.
Well,
between Easton and
So if
Trapp.
it's Trapp or if it's St. Michael's, then you have, you know, the odd number versus the even number. Is there not a way to have personal contact with a group of people, as if you were putting up a zoning, a zoning request?
It
You
was,
go-
it was
you go
pretty
back to like
sporadic.
probably 1800, and you've got to determine, you've got to pinpoint them. That takes a lot of time.
Well, do you have to pinpoint each? I mean, if you send each a notice, and then let's say you said Gloria versus Gloria Avenue, which is one street on St. Michael's that's going to be affected. That you say, and you have somebody put a sign up or a flyer that says there's going to be a half-hour town hall type notice, or be notified that this street has zoning issues, check here.
The one like that Gloria or whatever, was there any actual change for that, or you just had to correct the
It was
record?
just the address change.
It's just to correct the record.
Yeah, they didn't.
Well, I'm just using
Right.
that as the example that
Right.
if it's a big block, if it's if it's an entire street versus one house here and one house there, obviously that would never work. But if you're looking to,
I think a lot of them
You
would
know,
if you put
probably
up-
the,
if you-
the line being down the
I
road.
don't think that would
Couldn't
probably
happen.
be a fix
okay.
for for the sporadic records that we had to correct.
Right.
You know, it's, you know, an street extended here, and so, you know,
Two
they
houses
were,
there.
you know,
and
two
a
houses
house
here, two
there.
houses
Yeah,
there,
okay.
5 here. You know,
Right.
it's
That-
just-
that-
But
it's
how
just-
did you get up to
very-
1,800 or 1,700?
And like I said, some of it was education district, that's where it first started.
What, they were put in the wrong
That they were
education
in-
district?
Yes, that they were in, we had to clean that up as far as education districts, because again, it was an even odd thing, and they were all in our records. So.
You think a
and
lot of
then,
that was even odd?
there was some, I can't tell you exactly how many, there were some. And then that's when it just kept getting, then the next thing is when we discovered that there was also issues with the precincts, that there was not necessarily districts, but precincts. And then it did fall in that there were a few that were affected by districts.
Can
So,
you put it on
you know,
social media?
Pardon?
Via social media, that you just, do we have a Facebook page?
We're working on it, it's not exactly real.
We run the risk though of creating a confidence or lack of confidence problem for the board and the public's eyesight. What is worse here? And I think it's very important that there be voter confidence in the Board of Elections.
Exactly.
And I don't know,
Right.
I know we have a situation here that we want to deal with, but I don't know if we want to really do anything that will assassinate our own credibility.
Yeah, but if we don't do anything, if we are discreet, and we do it to protect our good reputation, or our standing, and the voters don't get notified in the most extensive way that we can possibly notify them, we can't do that.
Well, the two things, I'm not suggesting that we hide anything, but I just feel that if the lack of confidence can probably cause more of a problem in voters not voting. And we mentioned a few minutes ago about the possibility and feasibility of sending out notices to them. I think you may suggest, why couldn't we do both things? Well, I think we notify them direct. Now, we aren't responsible for everybody doesn't look at and read the newspaper, don't read their mail. Anyway, that's.
Yeah, well, I think we should do both, too.
Do
I think
everything
we
you
should-
can possibly do.
If they were mailed with return or receipt requested, you'll get information, it's just not sitting in the mailbox, and you'll know that that person has received the letter. And you're also communicating to them, this is important, this is not just another political mailing or whatever.
And, you know, if we do something for the newspaper, the specifics are important.
Can you determine the people that were changed, so if we did a mailing, we know who we need to mail
Well, I
to?
have to go through each and every record. That's the only thing I'm gonna be able to do.
I thought you said that State Board had all this data and that you were having trouble getting them to.
Well,
to
they
do
just
stuff
haven't
with
been
it.
able to somehow make a report out of it.
That's what I'm asking you. Rather than you do this, isn't it something that they can do over in Annapolis where they sort data by a certain algorithm and say, these are the people that got notices between this date and that date? And that's the group we're looking for. Rather than, you've got other things to do at this point in the election cycle that are just equally important, and they've got the data.
I'm gonna reach out to her again and see if she can, I left a message, like I said, last week, and she evidently was out because I didn't hear from her. But I will reach out to her again tomorrow and see if I can get more answers as far as if she came up with anything. I just don't know. you know, she was working on it, and then there was one of the individuals who was working there that left, and so of course their job duties started changing, and I don't know if that pulled her away. I don't know. I can't. I'm not gonna make excuses because of the fact that.
I'm not asking you to.
Mr. Black, your own
I would
attorney
argue
has
that-
offered a suggestion, so I think that tells you that it's important.
Oh,
No.
I realize it's very important, yeah.
I'm only asking that we try to find a way to get this done with, yeah, and,
I agree.
Expeditiously.
well, we have an election. Okay. Joe?
Our next meeting's not till March 21st. I'm wondering if we could have a special meeting at Mayo. Is everybody going to Mayo? Or not?
I'm only gonna be there one day.
Right. One day, is everybody gonna be there?
I
I don't
don't
think
know,
we're done
I'm
with
trying to go, but I don't know what day.
Okay, all right, I guess that's out then if some
But
people
don't you
won't be
could
there.
have food for dinner.
All right.
Did you hear that?
He elected him.
All right, is there anything to review on invoices?
So, just before we go on, can we establish some kind of a time that we are going to take action, rather than wait until, you know, I don't think we have to wait another 30 days to take action.
Well, I think we can, you can see how to figure out what people are involved, the names of the people involved.
I'm gonna do the best I can with
Right.
that. Yeah.
So if you can get the names, then maybe, Joe, you could call a special meeting as soon after we have
Right.
that information, and then we can use that meeting to decide what action we're going to take.
Well, I don't think it's a big jump, but, I mean, wait until our next meeting, because the election's not until the end of June.
June is-
And if we go too early, I mean, people, after they get it, they'll forget about it anyhow.
Well, we have to decide what we're
But,
going to do.
yeah, we do need to decide what to do, and I
Mhm.
think we're leaning towards sending a notice and, doing something in the paper. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I think, and I'm looking at the same calendar that you're referring to. I mean, we need to do this in a way that's thought through and not helter-skelter.
Right.
And I would, you know, we'd have to wait a month. I think we would not be depriving people of the information that they need to, where they're gonna vote, and what the changes are and how they affect them. So I'm comfortable with doing this at our March meeting, because you have April, May, and June, you have 3 months
Right, yeah.
before they have to do something in response to that. Now, there are people that may want to get an absentee ballot before early voting starts, so.
But that would,
That has to be
That wouldn't matter.
that would be very
That's a
minor
fact,
effect
yeah.
there.
So, I think, do this, don't just be rash about it, just do it in a thought-through process.
Your meeting schedule is pretty busy
Right,
for a regular meeting,
right.
and this is gonna need a lot of special attention, and might be worth a special
Well, let's see
meeting.
what she finds out,
You know,
and we'll, work on a notice and work on, something for the newspaper. And, if we have to have a special meeting, or if not, if time looks appropriate, we'll wait until the March meeting.
So
We need to see
it'll
if
be
we,
dealt with at the March meeting or earlier.
or earlier, a special meeting if we have information to deal with it earlier.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank
I have to
you.
go, apologize for interrupting. I did have one other quick, are we the only county that is doing this review?
The only reason that I did it, and it's not unusual as a new director, I was
Yeah.
just going through street files. And when I did, that's when I noticed things that were not necessarily in line with what I had, what I saw from those
It's
maps.
obviously needed, so.
And
We've
that
had
is
a lot
what's-
of
You've done a
mistakes
lot
in
of
the
work on it,
past,
so I
yeah.
appreciate all that.
And that's why it started
We'll be-
the process, and then Mark was very willing to come and help me through the
Our
process.
districts will be better delineated because of it, so.
Well, that was our goal.
Hey, as long as we just get all the notice out there about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go to review invoices, or any questions or anything there?
No, and right now, I guess I just want to make sure you
Okay.
want to table.
I think we
Mark.
need to, because, you know, I'm looking at what we need to give notice, we need to go back and look up all the legal stuff, because there's any boundary precinct established by a local board subsequent to July 187 shall follow visible features, and I think we need to find what we need to do to this. And I don't know if you're talking to Donna, ask her if she has any record of when we changed precincts after the, I think it was the 1990 census. We changed.
Precinct, well,
Changed precincts, we
Okay.
combined some.
Yeah, that was done in '06 or '07 or something like that.
06? I think it was earlier than that,
Was it earlier than that?
yeah.
Deferred, so write the minutes that say.
It hasn't been changed since you first came on the board, has it, Susan?
It may have been, I know we went through the census and there were changes, I
But
don't remember.
The change was done was Claiborne and Whitman were combined,
Mhm.
and Tunis
So that would
Mills
have been,
and the community center were combined. And it came about after the 90 census, because the 90 census created that part of Talbot County was in the legislative district with Queen Anne's County.
I can't,
And
I
that's,
don't remember what the specifics were.
but I don't know what the time was, but they
Okay,
should, I would
so-
think they would have some record of it at the state board.
of when precincts were
When the
changed?
precincts were changed and what was done.
Well, more than likely, and correct me if I'm wrong, that would have gone to the Department of Planning, correct? If the precinct, when precincts are changed?
I don't think so.
No,
They were
I
just
think that was
combined.
just- Yeah, I think that was, it was, the reason for that was to combine polling places,
Yeah,
right? It's because there weren't enough polling
because,
places.
well, at Whitman and Claiborne, they were so small, like at 300 voters each. And the one at Tunis Mills, I think that was probably because it's so hard to find a polling place down there that was handicap accessible. So it was combined with the one at the community center.
I'll ask Donna.
And,
If anybody knows, Donna will know.
And the fifth precinct was added after that, I think it was 90 census, when they made a separate, we were a separate legislative district with, for a few years, with Queen Anne's.
I'll reach out to her.
So if I can summarize for the minutes, we have, we will continue discussion of the maps at the next meeting. Is that the way to say that?
Or do you want to just hold off until this?
I
gets
think we
taken
better
and then
hold
we-
Yeah,
off
there's-
until
there's-
after the election.
I'll have the data when you want to come back and
Yeah.
talk about it. I'll have it and you can
Refer
just
to a
let me
later
know.
date then.
Yeah.
And hopefully we
I think
can find out more information, what we need to do.
Yeah, we'll get this issue addressed, and then at that point, once everybody's comfortable with getting this, the issue that started this addressed, then we can bring Mark back into the conversation as far as cleaning it up.
Do you know of any that, are there any real changes that have to be made, or is it just a matter of redefining,
Well,
showing roads where they actually are?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all it is. When you have GIS data and you want to do analysis and you want
Yeah.
to capture all of the addresses within a certain polygon or for, a precinct, and, you just so you can work with the data in the computer.
Well, you can
It's
do
just,
so much more detail
it's
now
just
than
a-
what you used to.
yeah, I just want to clean it up so it's used, we can use it for analysis and it, it displays right, things like that. It's really just a maintenance thing.
If you want to go, unless you have something else you want to,
Good.
or if anybody needs to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
You bet.
So I will reach out to Donna tomorrow. I'll try to get a hold of her and see if I can get that information. as well.
I have no problems with the invoice.
Okay, any questions or anything under reviewing invoices?
I don't have any.
The 1,000 voter notification cards, are they used up already? Or is that
Probably good.
since the 1,800 went out?
Oh, yeah, because, well, we've had an ERIC report that came out since then, so, yeah, it's been utilized. And things are picking up, people are
Mhm.
realizing they've got an election coming up, so they're wanting to get things updated and party changes and address changes and so forth.
But is there any reason we couldn't get a lot more than 1,000, get 3,000 or something at a time? I mean, are they gonna be is there any chance they would be changed, that we couldn't use them in the future?
Probably not.
Is there a discount for buying more?
Well, usually bulk discount, the more
Right.
you buy.
Yeah, I think that when it was just a matter of trying to keep it, but I'll reach out to him and see if
See what he says, yeah. All right, is there anything else on budget? All right, county bulletins,
Under budget for 2019, the report she gave us is
Right.
really the latest there is to discuss in that.
right.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you what I'm gonna present to the council, so I'm just gonna let you have that, and I've pulled down a little bit as far as numbers go, because I'm anticipating that there's not gonna be as many judges possibly.
It's two documents.
Yes, two documents, I'm sorry. The one is the one for supplemental budget for 18, and the other is for the budget itself for 19. So that's just a matter of, I just wanted you to have what's being presented to the council. I had to have Angela kind of guide me through that, because I didn't realize that I had a special piece of paper that I had to use, so she said, it has to be done a certain way. So I was like, oh, well, now I know.
They want everybody to be consistent. don't they?
Yeah, and it makes sense, but it was just like, didn't even think about it, so it was submitted to her correctly.
Okay, there's nothing in county bulletins, is it? Mayo conference?
Yeah, question. Procedurally speaking, for those of us who are going, what for example, I've talked with the police, and they got a confirmation number. What else do I need to do?
Show up.
Okay.
I'm gonna,
So you're going, what, staying Wednesday night or is it Tuesday?
I'm gonna say Wednesday and Thursday.
You're staying Wednesday night? Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's the same thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
Wednesday,
okay, so
Thursday.
what I will do is what I did last year. I'm going to send the information over to the county, ask them to cut a check. I've got the amount. And then when I go over on that Tuesday, I'm gonna go ahead and pay for everybody the confirmation numbers that I have,
All right.
and you should be good to go.
Okay. Fine. Fine, thank you.
customer satisfaction survey, they look fairly positive. I guess we should make a motion regarding the closing during Mayo.
I mean, Joe, these are all fives. I think this is a little more than fairly, positive.
Sometimes I understate. To close the office at noon on the Tuesday, March 13th, and reopen on Friday, March 16th at noon. Is that what it, somebody make a motion to that
I so
effect?
move it, Chairman.
So move, second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no? Okay. All right, we go to new business. Is there any new business to bring up?
Can I bring one more thing up? I think I forgot to say. I'm gonna be out of the office March 2nd through the 6th. I just wanted to let you all know that.
2nd through the 6th,
Yeah.
okay.
I apologize for not saying that earlier. I thought I did, and then I realized I didn't, so I'm not gonna be in the office those
I
days.
don't have any more room in this sheet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can't do it.
Oh, please don't tell me that.
Well, there's no deadlines or anything.
What are the dates again?
March 2nd through the 6th. Actually, I won't be.
And 3rd and 4th are weekends, so.
Yep.
All right, I guess, go to confirmation of the next meeting. May 21st at 9:30. I don't think we need a closed session today. Is that one day you can
You
make it?
said May 21st?
Oh, I'm sorry, March 21st.
I had enough trouble
It's,
with this.
it's getting late, Phil. A motion to adjourn?
I move the motion to adjourn. I move that we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We are so adjourned.